Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Echoes of the Ancients. You know, living in New York, you see all kinds of things on the street. People lost in their headphones, a spontaneous flash mob, the rhythm of the city itself. But imagine walking down your main street, your market square, and seeing not just a few people dancing, but dozens, then hundreds. Their feet are bloody. Their faces are etched with exhaustion and terror, and they cannot stop. They are dancing themselves to death. This isn't a metaphor. It's not the plot of a horror movie. This happened. In the summer of 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, a woman named Frau Troffea stepped into the street and began to dance. And she danced and danced and danced. And then, the city began to dance with her. So what was this? A mass hallucination? A toxic fungus? Divine punishment? Or something else? Something that speaks to the profound and sometimes terrifying power of the human mind under pressure? That's the mystery we're unraveling today. Let's set the stage. Strasbourg in 1518 was not a happy place. It was part of the Holy Roman Empire, a region gripped by what historians call the crisis of the late Middle Ages. Famine had been stalking the land for years. Harvests failed repeatedly. The price of grain skyrocketed. Malnutrition was widespread. On top of that, political and social tensions were fraying the community. And perhaps most importantly, the people were steeped in a very specific kind of religious fear. This was the era just before the Reformation truly exploded, but the air was thick with talk of sin and divine retribution. There was a potent, widespread belief in the power of saints to curse as well as to bless. Specifically, Saint Vitus. He was an early Christian martyr, and legend said that if you angered him, he would send a curse of compulsive dancing. They called it Saint Vitus Dance. This is the tinder. And in mid-July, a single spark landed. Frau Troffea, a local housewife, walked out of her home and began a fervent, jig-like dance in the street. She danced for hours. When she collapsed from exhaustion, she slept fitfully, then got up and started again. This went on for days. Her feet were soon a bloody, bruised mess. She was in clear distress, but she could not cease. Within a week, she was not alone. 34 others had joined her. Within a month, the chronicles tell us, the dancing crowd had swelled to over 400 people. Now, the city councilors were baffled and deeply alarmed. This wasn't just a public nuisance. People were dying. They were dropping from heart attacks, strokes, and sheer physical collapse. The initial theory, based on the prevailing medical wisdom of the time, was an overheated blood disorder. Their prescribed cure? More dancing. They thought if the dancers danced themselves to exhaustion, the fever would break and they'd be cured. So, in a move of stunningly tragic logic, they cleared the grain market, built a wooden stage, hired musicians and professional dancers to keep the afflicted moving, and even paid strongmen to hold up those who could no longer stand. It was a catastrophic mistake. The music, the spectacle, the official sanction, it only made the epidemic worse. It validated the mania. More people were drawn in, convinced they, too, were caught in the dance. When the dance cure proved to be a death sentence, the authorities pivoted. They banned music and dancing. They declared the phenomenon a curse, a punishment from God. The dancers were loaded onto carts and taken to a shrine of Saint Vitus in the mountains, where priests performed exorcisms and rituals to lift the curse. And slowly, over the next few weeks, the dancing subsided. The epidemic ended as strangely as it began. So what on earth was that? For centuries, it was dismissed as medieval superstition or mass hysteria. But modern historians and scientists look at the perfect storm of conditions in Strasbourg and see something more complex. The ergot poisoning theory is a famous one. Ergot is a fungus that grows on damp rye, a staple grain. It contains chemicals related to LSD. In large doses, it causes violent convulsions and gangrene. In smaller doses, hallucinations and strange sensations. An ergot outbreak could, in theory, explain the involuntary movements. But most historians find it an imperfect fit. The dancers didn't report the classic hallucinations of ergotism. Their movements were described as coordinated dancing, not the writhing seizures of poisoning. And they could be, temporarily, reasoned with. The ergot theory is tantalizing, but the evidence isn't quite there. The more compelling explanation, to me, lies in psychology and sociology. This is what's known as a mass psychogenic illness, or a conversion disorder on a societal scale. It's a physical manifestation of extreme psychological distress. Think about the people of Strasbourg. They were starving, terrified, living under the looming shadow of what they believed was a saint's curse. Their society was breaking down. The human mind can only bear so much. For Frau Troffea, that first dancer, her body may have literally acted out the anxiety that had no other outlet. Her silent scream became a dance. And here's the contagious part. In a community sharing the exact same fears, the same cultural beliefs, and the same physiological stress from hunger, her symptoms weren't just bizarre. They were a recognizable language of suffering. Others, subconsciously, began to speak that same language. It was a feedback loop of trauma. The authorities' response, first encouraging it, then condemning it, only amplified the panic and the sense of inescapable doom. The dancing was a symptom. The disease was despair. I think about this story often as an engineer and an entrepreneur. We talk about systems, how components interact under stress. Strasbourg was a system under catastrophic load. The biological stress of famine, the psychological stress of religious fear, the social stress of a fractured community. The dancing plague was the system failing, a collective short circuit. It reminds me that human beings aren't just logical units. We are meaning-making creatures. When the world stops making sense, when the suffering becomes too abstract and vast, the mind will sometimes create a tangible, physical story to embody it, even if that story is a deadly dance. It's a stark reminder of how deeply our physical reality is woven with our beliefs and our environment. The people of Strasbourg weren't foolish or weak. They were human, pushed to a breaking point that their time and culture could not comprehend. Their bodies became the canvas on which their collective nightmare was painted. So the next time you feel a rhythm, a pulse in your own life that seems to pull you along, maybe take a moment. Ask yourself what's really moving you. Is it joy? Is it purpose? Or is it an unspoken fear, a stress the world has placed on you that's looking for a way out? The echoes of Strasbourg tell us to pay attention to those silent pulses, because sometimes the most powerful forces are the ones we haven't found the words for yet. Thank you for listening to this episode of Echoes of the Ancients. If this story resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share the podcast with someone who loves a good historical mystery. For more deep dives into the forgotten corners of our past, make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. This is Ibnul J. Farabi from Light Not Studios. Until next time, stay curious.